After watching Where to Conquer next, I'm going to answer some questions. The first one is, what is democracy for me? And well, basically, it is that the government is not fully in charge of the decisions and what's happening in the country, but also that the citizens and the people can have a voice and a vote. Um, that we can be part of that decision making, because at the end, yes, the government is only a certain part of the population, but actually their decisions are going to influence a lot of people, and maybe they cannot understand the way of living or the necessities that we as citizens have. So I think that's democracy for me, the fact of involving not only like the politicians in the decision making, but also the voice of the people. How do I relate the documentary to our activities in class? Well, I think that the most thing that I related with is like with having rights, um, like people having rights just because of that, because we are people. And sometimes we are more focused on like having more economic benefits in general, and we forget that we also have rights and we deserve a certain kind of life. I think that's the thing that I related most to the documentary. What's the most interesting part of the documentary? There were two actually. The first one is like how to see the education system in Finland and in Slovenia, because I realized that we are not so different. Also, education here in Mexico is like for free and without religion, as we all know. So that's something that it may be like normal for us, but actually at the end, we can realize that not everyone has this opportunity. And also at the end of the documentary, I really like when they are making this comparison between, yeah, all the bad things that America doesn't have, and like, oh yeah, everything good, it's like outside America. But at the end, also the other mister that I don't remember his name mentions like, oh yeah, but the European idea of this was actually the has its origin in US. So I really like that at the end, even though during the whole 2 hours you only see like bad stuff about America, because you're comparing it to other countries, you realize that also America is not as bad as the documentary shows at the beginning. I mean, obviously, as every country, there are things that we can, or at least that the society in America can improve. Nevertheless, not everything is bad. Um, and yeah, how this it applies to Mexico? Well, that for us, as I mentioned before, we can have some benefits, like for example, in education or access to the healthcare, that for us might be like normal or not even as good as in Europe. But when we compare our country to US, for example, in this case, we realize that we have a lot of benefits and rights that the people in US has not. So I think it applies to Mexico in that way. And what's different in our context or in Mexico? Um, we can realize that as we are neighbors of yours, we have a lot of things in common, because we try to copy this standard of the first world neighbor that we have, right? But also we can realize that this society has a lot of mistakes, and sometimes Mexicans or Mexico in general, we see US as a really nice country. Everyone wants to go there. Everyone has like this idea of the American dream, as they mentioned in the documentary. But at the end, you realize that not everything is perfect. As they say, the grass always looks greener on the other side. But sometimes if we only see the grass greener, not because it's greener, but because we don't have it. So I think that the difference in our country is that we are trying to mimic US policies, US attitudes. We also want to be more involved with them. Nevertheless, we realize that there are also other countries that we can follow and that maybe they are doing better, but we are ignoring it just because of all the influence that the US already has with us. So I think our country is different as well, because we are aware of our history and we don't try to hide it. Um, and we also use that information for improving ourselves. Like, we are looking always for having more rights, and instead of making our society more and more difficult to live in, So I think that can be our difference between US, that US may be aware of the problems, but they want people to be more like hardworking and have less rights in that kind of way, and we are trying to improve it. So I think those are the main differences.